Hello there, I'm John and welcome to a special Articlass webinar hosted by Shopkeep Arty, the online platform helping everyone to be inspired, learn new art skills and have fun. Today we are zooming to England where we're going to be focusing on painting a little bird using pen and wash with professional animal artist Liz Chaderton. Being live is the best way to learn as you can ask questions directly to the artist as you paint along. If you're watching a recording of this event, sorry you missed it, but you can find a full list of materials and reference photos on the link in the description below. So without further ado, let's hit the travelometer to the left of me and we'll go and see Liz. So Liz works mainly in watercolour but also experiments with other techniques. We recently released a video where she spoke about her tips and methodology for using gold leaf, for example. Liz has had numerous exhibited works and has published a number of very popular books. Here we go now, and hopefully we should be seeing her just about now. A few camera issues, but is she there? There we go. I think your Wi-Fi is a little bit laggy today, so
well, the important thing is, can you see my overhead?
I can see your overhead, so don't worry. And but I was just saying hello to start with. Really, it's working at the moment, so touch wood, it's all right. We were just saying that it's nice that the weather's come out, but it's starting to get a bit more of a cold front on at the moment. But and this is our 16th show, which is a testament to your patience in putting up with me. So well done, well done.
Well, I just hope that at least it's not our 13th show. If we're going to have some technical issues, at least we haven't got that unlucky.
Exactly, we've got that. That's all behind us now. That's all behind us. Number 13. Right, now I'll let you just get ready while I finish off my short introduction. So, unlike our free 45-minute Articlass webinars, these special Arty webinars guarantee you a place and are more exclusive since we don't live stream. Some of you will have paid to join in live today, but most of you will be our Shopkeep Arty patrons who get access to these special classes for free. What's more, becoming a patron starts at the same price as it costs to attend this one show. And it can help you save money on longer workshop webinars or video access. There's no hidden charges. You can cancel at any time. So if you do enjoy what you experienced today, head over to shopkeeparty.com where you can find out more about the membership. These 1-hour classes are designed to give you a boost of creative inspiration from leading artists around the world, an amazing opportunity to join them live and experience different multicultural techniques and influences. Around halfway, we'll take a pause and I'll ask Liz about her upcoming 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar event, which is actually happening next week, which will be expanding on what we're going to be covering today. So, without further ado, let's get on with it and I'll get back to Liz and glitch free, I'm hoping.
Hello. Hello. Nothing like a little pressure. It's really lovely to be here and thank you for joining. So today I want to do a pen and wash study of this little sparrow that I've got in front of me. And I'm going to be using pigment liners here. But if you've got a dip pen, I hope you can see this one I did with a dip pen, and it will give a really different feel to the final picture. So on the longer workshop, we're going to be using dip pens, or I will encourage you to. I would never tell you to, but I would encourage you to. These paint a lot wetter and will take longer to dry, so they will be a lot better for the longer workshop. So what I wanted to do was just first of all just take you through a really simple way of drawing the bird, and then we'll get some pen on and then finally the wash. So as I say, that's our little reference photo, and I think drawing birds, it's lovely to remember that they came from eggs and they are very egg-shaped, especially the little songbirds from the garden. So I just wanted to show you a method of sketching birds that will work for pretty much any bird. And what we do is starting by finding the line of the pose. So if it was more upright, it would be an upright line, but sort of through the center, the line of the pose, and then putting an egg shape round it. Then looking where the head's placed and putting an egg shape there. And then the really, really important line is the line through the beak and looking at that angle. So if we then put that line in, what you'll realise as you do more of these is the angle of the line really is very important to show how the bird is very alert or whether it's more at rest. So if it's more at rest, the angle will be down into its chest, whereas if it's more alert, it tends to be upright. So if we get that line in and maybe just look at, say, the tail line as well, we've actually got everything we need to be able to sketch this bird pretty accurately. So actually, why don't I just do one very quickly here? So we've got our egg, and that line. From there, we can look at our reference, but see that the beak comes across, then it goes down, and maybe even emphasize a few of these slightly more angular marks here. And then sort of round the back, and sorry, I didn't put in its wing shape. Will come down here, comes down into the rump, and I mean its tail's going to go off the edge of my paper. And the really important thing to look at is where that eye is in relation to that beak line, and it's above here. It's above that beak line, so it's going to be about there. And then we could say put in the beak, think some of the markings here, where the wing is. And that's a lovely way to get a really good shape on our sort of songbird here, and say have some flight feathers here, and then the sort of secondary feathers that are at the top of the wing. And you could start shading, you could start doing whatever. So I would just encourage you to really look for the eggs in the bird as you sketch it out, and that will help you put it together and get it to be really nice and bird-like. But that beak line is really important. So funnily enough, I have sketched mine out already. That was just in case it went totally wrong, which is always a possibility. So I like to always do my little sketch before we get here. Let me just show you before we start on it, though, just really quickly on the dip pens. I don't know if you've ever used dip pens, but they come with a little holder and a little nib that you can put in, and you use them with liquid ink and just dip, and then can write or draw with them. And they're just really varied in the marks they produce, because by altering the pressure you can get really lovely wide marks or really narrow marks. And that's why I want to encourage people to use them, because they're so expressive. But as I say, they are quite wet. And you see that's still wet and I can smudge it. And because we're working quite fast today, I guess, we're going to use pigment markers. These are waterproof and they are light fast as well. They come in all different sizes. That's 0.1, and they go 0.5 up to about 0.8. So whereas you could vary the width of your mark with that pen, just with one pen, you'll need 4 or 5 different fine liners to get a variety of marks. So I've got a few different ones here. That's an incredibly fine one. The only problem is if they all get their nibs, their lids muddled up, you pick one up and it's not got the right thing on. So I'm going to start by doing some inking, and then we'll add the colour at the end. And always when I'm doing pen and wash, I'm trying to make sure that I don't just do a nice drawing and then colour it in, or indeed if I start with my watercolour first, I don't do a nice painting and then just outline it. What I want to do is to make sure that there's space for both sort of medium to play and to have a role to play. So I'm going to leave some edges without any ink on them, and then watercolour can come in and do some work later on, rather than, as I say, just doing a drawing and then sort of colouring it in. And because we're using these fine liners, and you can see I'm doing a really sort of scribbly mark, I'm going to have to work a bit harder to get some character out of these fine liners, because frankly they're really boring. This will do a fine line that's just the same width for miles and miles until the ink runs out on it. Whereas if you use a dip pen, it has intrinsically more interest and more character. But these are really convenient and you don't get half as inky with them. So, they are really appealing, I can see that. But we do have to do a bit more work. So I'm just sort of going to work on the head to get lots of different lines. That's a 0.5 I'm using. I might want to change, that's a 0.3 I've just picked up. So I might want to change some of the sort of widths of my mark and just sort of bring in those and come down and break the lines up and say work a little bit harder than I might otherwise have had to. And I'm going to come back with a little bit of diluted ink to do some tonal work on this as well. So I mustn't forget that I want to leave space for that. And I'll just sort of come down into the wing. Now, I'm not an ornithologist. I don't know if anyone out there is, but I do think it's important that your bird is plausible. So birds have these, they're called secondary feathers at the sort of top of the wing, and the flight feathers, which are folded down. So it's really worth just looking at shapes and what's going on, really observing and not just assuming that you know what a bird looks like. But equally well, I'm not planning on this being sort of for a, I don't know, scientific textbook or anything. Now this bird is in some sort of very lovely berry laden tree, and I think it is nice to get some of those sort of in. But again, this isn't a botanical sketch, so I'm just going to put in sort of an indication at this point, and then we'll use the watercolour later to sort of get those lovely berries. And I'm just going to do the berries round here, maybe a few berries round the back. And with pen and wash, you don't have to do all the pen and then the watercolour and then just sort of stop. You could equally well do some pen work, then some watercolour, let it dry, do a bit more pen if you haven't done enough, etc., etc. So you can work backwards and forwards, which is really nice, and build up your picture from there. So it's usually best, I would say, to do too little rather than too much, because we can always go back in and add. It's a bit tricky to see on this picture, but I think there's a little foot just sort of over here, and you can just see a toe of another foot sort of coming through the berries here. So I'm just going to put a little indicator there. And to be honest, I don't think we need an awful lot more ink at the moment, because it's the important thing is to sort of say leave some space, but I am going to put in just a tiny bit of liquid ink just to give it some shape. Just so this is just Indian ink, it's waterproof, and I'm just going to put in a little sort of tone here, just to sort of give it a little shape, and that actually means that the watercolour won't have to work quite so hard, which is nice. Maybe a bit more at those wingtips down there, and a bit more sort of in the tail. So it's kind of fun to really mix things up. We've got pen, and then we're going to have, well, a bit of ink wash, and then we can have a bit of watercolour wash. I'm just going to put some sort of there. So already you can just see that the little bird is starting to sort of come to life, I hope. And I'm very lucky. My studio is at the bottom of the garden, and I've got a little quince tree outside, which is usually full of birds, and they come and peck at the handle of the studio door, because I think they see the reflection and think it's another bird. So I've got plenty of inspiration just outside the window. And sometimes it's actually quite nice just to leave your illustration as black and white, if you want to. But we're not going to do that today. We are going to add colour. Ideally, you would let that ink dry, because we don't want it to smudge. But I'm conscious that we need to sort of move on, so I'm going to risk it.
Well, it's okay if you want to take a little pause at this, because we've actually got 20 odd minutes, so it depends how long you want to.
I've got my hair dryer. Can I? Okay, can I just give it a very quick
Yeah,
zap?
yeah, do that.
And if anyone's got any questions, please do ask. And again,
how's everybody coping with drawing that bird? Because it was useful, as Liz was saying, using the egg shaped for. Louise has asked, would you ever use acrylic ink to highlight at sometimes?
But yes, I do occasionally use them. FW, the white FW ink is really opaque and lovely to use if you've lost a white. Otherwise, I don't tend to use acrylic inks. That's what I was saying.
Okay, thank you. And Lucia said, do you sometimes use walnut ink?
I have done. It's lovely. On the whole, with something like this, I would just use a black waterproof Indian ink, because that's great. Sometimes I use a sepia, and I have used walnut in the past because it has a lovely texture to it. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's great. Ruth has said that she's just dropped some blobs of ink into off her dip pen into her work. What should she do?
Don't panic.
Yes.
Right. So one blob of ink, go on, just to demonstrate, one blob of ink is a panic. Oh my goodness. If you put another few blobs, it actually looks like you meant it.
Yes, a happy accident.
So don't panic. Just put a few more blobs in other places, and it will look like you intended it. Yeah, absolutely. Because once that blob, sorry, I'm going to now have to hairdry that again. But once you've got a blob, you can't, if you try and dab it off, it'll smudge. And a smudge looks horrible, but a blob is fine. So just put a few more in an appropriate place, and it will totally look like you intended it.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you.
So having put on my little blobs to make Ruth feel that she wasn't alone, I'm just using a tiny, I'm screwing up the end of my kitchen towel, and I'm just going to whip away most of that ink so that I can dry it quicker. It's just a good way of basically getting rid of the excess without upsetting the outline of your blobs, because you do want them to look random. As say, smudges look disgusting, but blobs are fine. So I'm just going to do that, and hopefully at the end you'll think the blobs are the best bit of it. So I'm going to have to dry those, so just give me 2 seconds.
No problem. No problem.
Those might still be a bit wet, but hopefully that'll be okay. So yes, embrace the blob, I think, is the lesson there.
It's the new Shopkeep Party mantra. Embrace the blob.
Absolutely. So I thought I would use a little palette of pans today, simply to make this feel like it's a bit more we're sitting in the garden painting birds rather than being in the studio. Because if you were out and about, you're likely to take a little paint box. If you have got a little paint box like that, it's a really good idea just to spray it with some clean water before you get going, because it will loosen all those colours up and let them sort of release them more quickly. What I was saying was we want to leave space for the ink and the watercolour to play. So don't just colour in the lines that you put. Let the watercolour do a bit more work. So I'm just putting in some colours and seeing where they go and softening off some edges. Now, I'll rub out the pencil lines later, but that just gives a little space for some of the watercolour to do some work, rather than say just colouring in what I've already got going on there. And I'm picking out just colours that randomly look like they might be appropriate for this little sparrow. I can't even tell you what these colours are, I'm afraid, because this is a paint box that I got given and it's got some really random colours in. Now I don't like that, what I did there.
We've had some lovely comments, by the way, Liz. So Sarah said, don't worry, Liz, lovely to watch you. Cecilia said, don't worry about all the gremlins, I'm really loving this. And Amelia says, rather funny with sound and video, still possible to follow though, and lots of fun. So don't worry, everybody's looking at the bright side.
I really appreciate that, because you do feel a bit sort of like, I don't know what to do at this point.
I know, powerless. I know.
Exactly. Yes. So I'm sort of putting in those berries very, very loosely. And again, if you've got splashes of ink, maybe it's appropriate to have splashes of colour. So when I do splashes, I tend to do this. And if you want bigger blobs, then I do a more vertical sort of fat action. If you don't want the blobs to go on your bird, you could just mask it off with a bit of paper. But I'm such a mucky pup, I like blobs, so if they go on the bird, I'm going to just live with that.
Trina says, I definitely agree with all those comments. Embrace the blobs. Embrace the Zoom gremlins. It's all okay because we're with Liz and John and the little bird.
Thank you. That is a beautiful attitude, and it is
Exactly.
really appreciated because well, you just want everything to work, especially when you've if you sort of prepared for things and you're just like, well, how did this have happened?
I know, I know.
Oh,
Well, and also just to reinforce the workshop, because I know that a lot of people that I talk to, they haven't maybe tried a workshop before. But in a workshop, if we had this experience at the start, I'd kind of ask Liz to probably restart the router and go through that process, because that usually fixes most of those issues. But obviously, we don't really have the time now to do that, because it would take rather a long time for the router to boot up again. But yes, so we'd make sure before we actually properly started that it was all.
yes, and we've never had this
We
before. I mean,
haven't, no, we haven't.
the very first one we ever did when the whole telephone line fell down, but we got
I
round
know,
that
I know.
before.
Yeah, it's
So
always happening to you, Liz. I can't. Yeah, so just for those of you that don't know that story, so the first ever arty class that we did, so
no, it's
16, 17 shows ago, and we were just about to go live that afternoon, and Liz phoned me to say that someone had accidentally cut through the Wi-Fi cable on the outside of their building. So it was quite. Did you have to go round to a friend's house, Liz? Was that the? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I did. I had decamped to a friend's house, which was highly illegal at that point because we were in the middle of the very first
Oh, that's
lockdown.
right. Yeah.
So please don't grass me up because I could get whatever number fine that was. So
Well,
yeah,
don't worry. It's just between you and I, that conversation.
thank you guys. um,
Now we're sort of at the halfway thing. I don't know whether now's an appropriate time just to take a little bit of a pause, or
yes, can I just put in my
just let.
little
Yeah.
red what are those things called? Stalks. I'm just putting those in because it'd be nice if they sort of spread while it's wet. There you go.
Okay.
Just and maybe even a few little red blobs for fun. See, I'm really embracing the blobs today.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
that's
now you
great.
can stop. There you
Brilliant.
go.
Okay. Thank you. So, how are you enjoying it? I know with gremlins to one side, it's the bird's really coming on, and it really does look. It's going to be a fantastic one at the end. Something really great for a little picture on your wall, or on the front of a card or something. So it looks really good. Very spring-like. If you're watching a recording of this on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it if you could press the thumbs up button, as it then ensures YouTube recommends the class to more people, helping us spread the benefits of creativity to a wider audience, young and old alike. So thank you. And as I covered at the start of this show, this 1 hour class is a prelude to Liz's full 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar. In our workshops, we have a lot more time, and you can speak directly to the artist for guidance should you wish. You can also get a written critique of your art after the event as well. It's a full package to help you develop your skills as an artist and have fun. It's also really great value when you consider the amount of time that the artist is giving up to you that day. So Liz's workshop is going to be taking place in exactly 1 week. So next Thursday at 3:30 in the UK in the afternoon. So that's Thursday the 6th of May. Liz, a little birdie told me that in next week's workshop webinar, we'll be in for a much bigger tweet than today. I wonder whether you could expand.
Thank you for that, John.
Takes me ages to work out these introductory nuances on the workshop.
Bless you. Bless
I know,
you.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so let's have a look. I can see on your board you've got
Right.
something there.
Yes,
So it's a little smaller photocopy of something, but it'll obviously be bigger than this.
Sold the original, I'm afraid. So, yes. So what we're going to do is basically a lovely collection of birds. We are going to, I provided reference photos of numerous little sparrows. So we're going to start the workshop by working on a composition. I thought that would be really handy, how you actually pull different photos together to make the composition you want. So we'll start off with the composition, and we're going to do a long sort of letterbox shaped piece. It can be as big as you want, right up to a full sheet of watercolor paper if you want, but do think about framing it afterwards. So we're going to work on composition. I encourage you just to get a little dip pen, because then you get the broad and the narrow, and we will do that sort of mark making, which really does, I mean, I don't know if you can see between, even as far as we've got here, it's just a slightly different feel to the mark making. And then we're going to work on the colour. Now, these were sparrows, and even in my world, I know sparrows are, it'll be great for understanding pen and wash, for colour variations, for mark making, composition, all those which are really transferable skills to others. So I think it should be fun. I hope it will be.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. And when we do, I think we're going to be premiering this video again tomorrow. I'll do a few edits on it, and that will be, and we'll send an invite out to you so that you can join us again. And Liz will be on the live chat. It'll be at 2 o'clock tomorrow, and she'll be on the live chat to expand on what we're going to cover in the workshop. But actually, you can see that on our website. So let me go and show you how to book the workshop next week with Liz, and we will definitely get this laggy broadband sorted by then. We've never had this issue before, so it's obviously something just with the local network now. Right, so what you do is you head over to Shop Keep Arty, click on live events at the top, and then scroll down and you'll see Liz's workshop there, and you've got some better quality pictures of what she was just showing you, actually. So you scroll down, it explains the things she's going to be covering and some of the reference photos, a list of the materials that you need. If you need to top up on any materials, got a 10% off deal with Jackson's Art that ships globally. And then if you're interested, there's a link here and it will take you through to Liz's shop. And this is where you can then book a live webinar place to take part on that live event, and that's £38. And when you go to check out, and check out with the £38, your local bank will then convert it into your local currency. There's also a video there, and the normal price is £42 for the video, but if you've attended the workshop, you get a big discount and you can purchase the attendee discount video to add onto your workshop. So that's £56 in total. Once you have taken part in the webinar, or if you've ordered the video and booked that, if you head over to our purchase video site, and that's where you can then go down to Liz's workshop, and so long as we've unlocked it for you because you purchased it, you just click the watch button and you can then watch it on any device for as long as you want, as many times as you want. So that will be great, and it's a really great resource then. So hopefully that helps. Let's go back to Liz.
So what you want to do, the cardinal rule is to make sure that your painting is dry. In between, when you're changing between ink and watercolour, you don't want them all to merge into a yucky mess. So this is damp, but I'm going to risk it rather than have you watch hair dryers any longer. So you need to then look if there's any pencil marks you want to get rid of. This is a good time to get rid of those. Just very gently. And then decide. So what I would do is look at this and just think, I do actually want to add some more ink. And it's far better to, as I say, to add more ink, because that's easy. Taking it away is impossible. So I'm just going to add a few more marks just to define and to give a little bit of more interest into some areas which are a little bit sort of bleh at the moment. That's a technical term. So the shape of this wing has gone off somewhat, but actually we can regain it very easily with a little sort of judicious line work, and we can also just distract the eye if we need to. So I'm just adding in a few more areas, and I'm using that sort of scribbly mark again, just because for this subject I think that gives an energy to it. I really don't like what I've done with this branch, and I think a somewhat more jagged sort of approach like that might be better. just looking where the branch actually goes. So it does go in front of the bird, and I've somehow sort of lost it. So I'm going to, for variety, just have a bit more of a jagged sort of mark to show some of the just a difference. So you've got the roundness of the berry and the more jagged of the branch.
Now, Patricia asked, what brand of marker are you using?
Oh gosh, I have got so many different. Look, totally. I've got a Unipin. I've got Stabler. I've got dodgy cheap ones off Amazon. I've got all sorts. I've got some Derwent somewhere. As long as they're waterproof, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But you test them.
And Kieran asked, are bamboo dip pens okay? I guess any dip pen is fine.
Yeah, I don't really like bamboo dip pens, simply because you have to dip so repeatedly. Because, a metal dip pen. Oh, she says that didn't really. A metal dip pen will go on for a long time. There you go. That's, from one dip. Whereas I find a bamboo dip pen probably will only go on for an inch or so. Now,
Okay.
if you get on with them and you enjoy them, then of course it's brilliant. I personally have never had a great deal of success with them. So it really is horses for courses.
So we've had a couple of funny comments. So Trina said it kind of reminds her of 1960s psychedelic music or 1980s electronica music today with the sound. And Sue said that you, Liz, once said in a class that life is too short for stretching paper, and she said now you should modify that and say life is too short, just zoom on.
Thank you. You're all so kind, because I'm just like, I don't like it when technology lets me down.
I know. Don't worry. This is a first. Not bad. 1 out of 16 classes. I think that's not too bad.
It's not bad, is it? But it's not good either, is what I'd say. I'm just going to show you that I'm putting in some marks to indicate where the leaves are, because I thought these green areas were a little ambiguous. But again, I'm not going to follow the actual marks. I'm sort of adding to it rather than sort of just outlining where I put sort of leafy shapes, just to sort of add a little rather than just sort of totally emphasize everything. And again, I just think maybe we need a few more marks down there for some berries. But I like, say here, where some of the berries are sort of with watercolor and some are with pen. And I would like this berry to have a bit more color. So it's just a matter of sort of balancing things up. And I do think it would be nice if we just brought some of that yellow up to, say, the back of that head, and then just fade away just with clean water, so it doesn't have a halo. But something like that, I think, would balance it up. And then just for a little bit more splatter, seeing we went for the splatter, I'm doing that into the wet area to get some soft splatters and a few dry, like that. And probably that's all you need to do, because it's a bird on a twig with some berries, and that's what we set out to do.
It looks really, I mean, in this limited amount of time, Liz, and the fact that we had all these distractions, I think you've done a remarkable job. And would you mind holding it up to the camera a bit closer? That's great. Although it's paused a bit. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Great.
But I just wanted a little sketchy study of the bird, and you're trying to get the essence of the bird, the pose of the bird, and I just like these little sketches, and I think they work really nicely in like a nature journal. But if you wanted to, as a little, as you say, a greetings card or something like that, it's just a really quick way of capturing what you're seeing, and hopefully you're seeing huggins of lovely songbirds at this time of year. So
Yeah, no, they're
that's
everywhere. They're everywhere, aren't they? And Amelia's asked, when using dip pens, she has trouble choosing nibs that are writing smoothly and are good for drawing. Any advice on that?
well, I've got this little collection of nibs I've got here. Um, and I mean, because dip pens, like a holder, is only probably £1 or £2, and these nibs are about 70p each. So the ones I find best are actually Italic nibs. So these are proper drawing nibs. Let me hold it up. So they're quite sharp and pointy, and I don't particularly like those. But these are actually Italic nibs. Actually, if I put it against my hand, you can see it's got a sort of blunt end, and that just means you get the thick and thin, which is really holds extra ink, so that you don't have to dip so often.
Right.
Don't know if
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
see that. So those the ones I like the most. Let me just, why don't I swap over? Let's find this really broad one. So when you get a brand new nib, so I shouldn't tell you all this, you're meant to come on the workshop and then I'll tell you. If you get a brand new nib, they're often coated in like an oil or a wax to stop them tarnishing while they're sort of in storage. So just dip them in very hot water for sort of 20 seconds to get rid of that, if there is any coating. And then this is like an italic. So if I go sideways, I can get nice fine mark. And if I go vertically, I can get that really broad mark. And then obviously I can get sort of just a real variety. And the harder you press, the broader the mark. So it's just really expressive. So I find those italic nibs are lovely. I mean, that's too broad for a subject like our little bird. And I would choose a sort of slightly narrower one. And see that you can still get pretty broad mark, but you can get a far finer mark, and that's rather nice to work with. So I would just wear it in as well if I were you, because sometimes when you first use a nib, they're a bit scratchy and horrible. The other thing to check is whether, especially if you're using on a watercolor paper, if any of the paper fibers are starting to get caught in the top of the nib, just they can sort of clog it up a bit, so just clean that off. That would be the other thing I'd say to check.
Brilliant. And Trina mentioned that she sometimes works with twigs dipping twigs in from time to time, which could be a really interesting effect, I think. Karen says, could you use a food pen?
Yes. So a food, if you don't know what a food pen is, it's an Oriental, usually Japanese or Chinese pen that has a bent nib. Let me show you with my dodgy bent thumb. That's what the nib looks like. It looks like it's been dropped and the end bends over. And it's used to imitate sort of brush calligraphy that you Oriental, because if you use that end bit, you get a really broad stroke from there. But say you use the tip, you get a really thin stroke. So a lot, you can get food or food I call them food I don't know the right.
Okay.
I don't know if that's right. That's just what I say. A lot of fountain pens you can get with that sort of funny nib, and then you can get real thick and thin lines. So you can have, I say, broad lines like that, a medium medium line across, even turn them upside down and get a really fine line. So rather than fiddling around with 3 or 4 different little pens like this, you get all that variety from that one nib. Really nice.
No, that's great.
But now my thumb hurts.
Right. Well, I think we're nearing the end of this interesting session. It's been a really great session nonetheless, and we've had lots of comments saying that it didn't matter about the quality of the audio. That it was the fact of they were just here, and it was a lovely, lovely painting, and it was. So thank you, Liz. And it reinforces the fact that if you can join us at the workshop, obviously next week, we will definitely be lag free. We'll test it to every nth degree prior to the show, and then we'll be able to cover all those different things. And in the workshop, it's not just about the painting. We go off on a few tangents here and there, just a little bit like we touched on just there with some of the nibs. So you'll learn loads. So hopefully you can join us. So if you've got any words of thanks that you'd like me to pass on to Liz, now's the chance to... Oh, hang on, I've gone all funny there. Now's your chance to write that down on the Q&A. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. We'd love to see also what you've come up with. So there's I'll create a post on our Facebook page, and you can just share your painting on that. This has been one of those days. So at the end of another great arty special, if you do want to join Liz and I for the full workshop event, spaces are limited, so do remember that, and so don't hang around. So let me read out some comments. I'll come to you, Liz. We've got I love this little bird from Trina. My yard is home to scrub jays, crows, yellow-billed magpies, mockingbirds, mourning doves, and tiny little sparrows. So my goodness, what a brilliant painting session she'll have. Thank you, Liz, from Kim. Very enjoyable. Pauline, thank you. Patricia, thank you, John and Liz. Still enjoyed the presentation despite the glitches. Bobby, thanks, Liz. I just painted a good bird. Egg for Lent. Amelia, loved it and the touch of sense of humour. Thank you for the nib information. Louise, such a laugh and educational too. Many thanks both. Well, yeah, I don't know quite. Yeah, laugh. Kathy, thank you, Liz. Jean, loved that. Perfect for sketchbook and cards. Judy, a very lovely way to paint the bird. I enjoyed the class. Thank you so much. Julia, this was really interesting and fun afternoon. Thank you for managing such a difficult time with the connection. Sue, love this little bird. He should be called Lucky. Lucky to be painted against all the odds. Christine said, just a big thank you. Loved the whole session. Could follow it all. Lovely, bright and inspiring. Can't wait for the workshop. Eva, lovely experience despite the technical problems which came from both sides. Okay, well, thank you. Hazel, really looking forward to the long class. Trina, fabulous class as always. Ruth, thank you, Liz. Margaret, always enjoy Liz. Draw birds a lot. Patricia, loved this, Liz. Thank you so much from Pat. And Sally, great, thank you, such fun. So some really nice comments there. I'm sure you'll agree, Liz. So that was lovely. So before you go, if you've booked onto the full 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar with Robert Dutton, where we're going to be creating an amazing bluebell wood, I'll see you there in about 30 minutes. If not, I hope you'll join me next Tuesday for a free arty class when we'll be travelling to Malaysia at the revised time of 1 o'clock in the afternoon, UK time, to join watercolour artist Jason Yao. So until I can hear my voice turning into Dalek speak. So anyway, we'll see how that turns out on the video. So until next time, it's obviously goodbye from me, and thank you so much for the handling all the glitches and the patience and your time and everything. To Liz.
Thank you so much. I am so sorry, but
no, it's not. It's not your fault. Don't. It's not your fault. I just blame Zoom. All that good money on that professional subscription that we pay. I'm going to be having words with them. But a big round of applause for you, Liz. Thank you so much. And I'll finish on the. See you next week, Liz. Thank you.